Does it really game week? It is. So obviously really excited that we're starting off the week, starting off the season, and it's game day on Friday, so we have a lot of eager faces in the locker room, freshmen and seniors all alike, and coaches alike. We're excited to get things going, and it's been a promising been a promising prolonged preseason, if you will, but feel as though our team is ready to go and getting through this latest challenge. Obviously, the disappointment last weekend, it was hard. It was hard news for our ladies to hear that when they were all getting ready last week, and for games, then to have that situation arise, and out of the health of our student athletes made decision, and we didn't have enough players to play. So and obviously that was disappointing for them last weekend. So we're excited that we get another crack at it this Friday to get things going. So yeah, fun to finally talk hockey and think that it's actually game day on Friday. So appreciate everybody signing on.
Thank you so much, Steve. We'll start with Zach Dwyer of the St. Cloud Times.
Hi, Steve. I guess first of all, can you just tell me a little bit more about the situation of what this last week's been like, having to pause practice as you prepare for your first game, and also just kind of what the outlook is for Friday, for how many you will have, if there's going to be a couple missing, or what that looks like?
Yeah, well, first off, talking about Friday, we do have a path to have more than the required minimum based on WCHA protocol. So, if all goes well, knock on wood, I'm knocking on all the wood doors that I walked past lately down this hallway. So that we'll have, I believe about 15 skaters and 2 goalies available if all goes well. And I have to double check some of the return to play. And because the athletes, they, even though that they may be out of isolation or out of quarantine, those that have tested positive, there's a rest period, that we abide by, obviously, for the health of those individuals, and then they have a return to play protocol that they have to go through on top of that in order to make sure that, and they also have to be cleared by a physician. So there's lots of layers of safety there that have been put in for those student athletes. So I have to double check. They're all kind of coming back at different times, but we will have, as long as everything goes according to plan, we will have enough players to play. So obviously, this past week is challenging. Any time where you have, that we were skating with last week, we had, what was it? How many do we have? 7 skaters and 2 goalies skating all last week after we were able to, and made sure everybody was testing negative and everything was, everybody was safe and healthy in that respect. But we had 9, and like I said, 7 skaters, 2 goalies all last week. So you get kind of creative and digging up some different drills here and there. So, but we're really proud of our student athletes of what they were able to do and how they committed to that week, albeit not ideal. And they knew that some of their buddies were preparing for a game on Friday, that they committed to getting better last week. Those were able. And then, those that weren't, they did what they could do, whether that's being healthy and just focusing on schoolwork and seeing the doctor if they had to. So we're really proud of our student athletes, how they were able to commit to making the most out of a not ideal situation. So.
All right, up next we have Drew Steele.
Oh, Coach, obviously the last week's been crazy, but what was camp like before that last week?
Yeah, leading up to that?
Yeah, leading up to it.
Yeah, things were moving along great, and we were having, great practices. We had our COVID Cup that we were doing. So COVID Cup canceled by COVID, pretty ironic, huh? But so we had that going every Friday that our players are really engaged in and really enjoying. But our practices, they were, upbeat, high tempo, and we're getting a lot of great work in. And then obviously this latest situation hit, and it's not unlike other teams around the country. The other teams that it's hit them at different times, and it just happened to hit us right before we start our season, unfortunately. But we're really impressed with some of our, obviously our freshmen coming in. We're really happy with that group. Transfer in Addie Scribner as well. Really, pleased with what she's bringing to the table as a transfer. And then our seniors, our seniors come back in great shape, and we committed during that time, during the September, October, where they're used to playing games, we just really committed to pushing our fitness level, pushing that ceiling as high as possible. And our players committed to that. And they did a great job. I think, we're probably the fittest that we've been in a long time in terms of how they've been able to commit to making the most out of the, not ideal situation. So, leading up to it, obviously we were really encouraged by a lot of what we were seeing on the ice, and especially with what our freshman group was able to add to an already, very exciting returning. I think is returning top 4, 4 of our top 6 returning scores, I believe it was. Might have to fact check me on that, but yeah, so it was looking really good, and it continues to look good, albeit not ideal right now.
All right, now we have Sam Getzinger, also of KVSC.
Hey, thanks, Thomas, and thanks, Coach, for taking some time and answering some questions here. You touched on it a little bit, this freshman class and also some new transfers. What do you like about their progression so far in the early going to the season, and are we going to see a lot of action coming from them in this first game week?
Yeah, that there's going to be some freshmen put into some roles that they may not have been thrown into right away in a first weekend, but hey, it's kind of next players up in line and ready to go, so in regards to some of those freshmen in the transfers, and the biggest thing that's really stood out to us as a staff is that their eagerness and their willingness to learn and their willingness to work and put that work ethic in and ask questions and become better and listening to the leaders, to the seniors, and being open to feedback. And that's one thing that's really stood out to us, about this freshman group. Add to that, we have a well-rounded mix of freshmen in terms of what they bring to the table. We have some elite scorers, such as Gentry, elite scorer. We have, good goalie, Asani Ahola. We have some great 200-foot players as well, that can play in all sides of the puck, and that's as a freshman. We expect them to be able to step into some significant roles. We have, Adela Skidlova as a freshman Czech D that's coming in, that's been looking great. She'll be able to play a significant role for us on the back end right away, just as Addie Scribner as well, right, with the transfer from Ohio State, so she has that experience of being in the college program already, albeit not playing a lot of games with Ohio last year, but we expect big things from her and stepping in. She can play both D and forward, but she'll play D for us this year. And then again, the list goes on. Allison Green and Mackenzie Bourgeois and Nicole Ness. It's we have a good group of freshmen coming in that we're obviously quite excited about. And finish forward, Linnea Milatindos as well, great 200-foot player. She's played in all situations. She was playing in the Finnish Senior League last year, so she has some experience and as well international experience. So it's a big group. So it's a long list for me to go through. But like I said, going back to the biggest thing that's impressed us as a staff is their willingness to learn and their willingness to work.
All right, next up we have Bill Proud of Center Ice View.
Hi, Coach.
Hey, Bill.
Minnesota State has had 2 games at hand already. They played up in Duluth last weekend, didn't fare too well, but they do have 2 games. How do you prepare for a team and like that's had 2 games, under their belt already? And, do you feel you're going to be at a disadvantage to start off the season playing a team that's already got 2 games in hand?
Yeah, always, no matter what, no matter how much you try, you can't replicate real game experience and learning from those games, and this is the hand we've been dealt. We don't have those, they do. It's no problem, right? So how we prepare for that is just focusing on ourselves and what we can do and making sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what our identity is on the ice and what we want to bring, but then also system-wise, obviously, and special teams obviously is always huge at the beginning of the year, so that's what we'll do. We'll make sure that, we're focusing on ourselves. We have our special teams in order, which we've been focusing on. And then there's a lot of other pieces. You can't cover everything. Sometimes it seems like you can with September, October, but obviously these last few weeks leading up to games got dealt a different hand, right? So we just have to adapt and deal with it. And so, so that's how we prepare for them. We just focus on ourselves and do what we can do, and that's what our players have been doing. So, we try and replicate it as much as possible at different situations during practice. And in the end, just our players just have to be comfortable and just play, and realize they're not going to know everything sometimes, especially our freshmen, right? And it's just, and just getting out there playing, getting a feel for it, getting that first shift under your belt, and then going from there for those freshmen specifically. So, we'll just continue to focus on ourselves and hit the ground running on Friday.
All right, next up then we have Drew Steele once again.
Of course, with Minnesota State coming to town, that means a familiar face, Taylor Wemple's coming to town. Obviously on a different bench than you're used to. Of course, she had the red shirt last season. What do you expect coming in with a familiar face, but in a different uniform, I guess?
She'll have a big grin on, she'll enjoy coming into town, looking forward to seeing her, and obviously happy she's found a place that that's she's happy with, and she feels as though she's being fulfilled there, and so we're happy for her, and so it'll be fun to see her. I hadn't seen her for obviously a while. I've talked to her a few times, and her mom as well, so just stayed in touch with them a little bit during last year. So obviously happy for her that she's playing again, so there'll be a few smiles, but I'm sure there'll be a few extra bumps and a few extra a little more aggressive in some of those one-on-ones on both sides of the puck, right? So it's going to be fun for us to be able to just get out there and play. And in the end, she's wearing a different color jersey, and that's it, right? So once that puck drops, it's game on. So it'll be fun to see her, but in the end, we're looking forward to getting our team back on the ice and playing against Mankato.
All right, so here we've got Mick Hatton.
Hey, Steve, for you guys to, show improvements and stuff, are there a few key areas for you? I mean, is it all offensive, or, what are things that are going to be key things for you guys to improve over last season?
Yeah, well, obviously everybody wants to score more goals, so, find me a team that doesn't want to say they want to score more goals. So, but, that was obviously a point for us that we were really focusing on and wanting to really hone in on during this first couple months. And so we kind of doubled down on that and worked a lot on our offensive game and redefining what that looks like and redefining what our team identity is on the ice and what that means and how that gets played out in our team system. So obviously offense is one, specifically scoring off the rush, looking for ways to do that, increasing our chances off the rush, which obviously, leads either for goals for, hopefully, but if not, usually a good zone entry leads to more zone time, so we really focused on our zone entry and that, especially in the first month when all of our ladies were back here. So we focused on that, focused a lot on our breakout. We thought we took significant strides on our breakout towards the last half of last season. We're really happy with where we're at with that. So tried to continue on those pieces of it as well. But so those would be the two big pieces that we really tried to kind of double down on the first little while in September and October. And there's certain defensive pieces to our game that we want to tweak as well in terms of our defensive structure down low and what that looks like. We really started to establish that identity late last season and want to carry some of that forward, so really establishing what that looks like and a few little tweaks that we can make to our structure that we believe can help us have more of a checking mindset, in the defensive zone. And then really looking to have it be that counterattack team. That team is in really good defensive position, but then looks for those opportunities to obviously counterattack. So we spent a lot of time on that. And again, really getting a good idea of what our identity is on the ice.
Are there a couple of freshmen that you think, have a lot of offense potential? I mean, or that have shown, I guess, here in the early going that have kind of, made you stand up a little bit and go, hey, that's a good sign right there.
Yeah. If you if you punch a few of the names and elite prospects, a few of them may jump out just with their stats, but obviously Emma Gentry is one of them. Emma Gentry, she comes in, she's a freshman that, we project to have a significant role offensively. She's shown that at every step of the way, for even when she was with the US U18 team, she played a role offensively with them, winning gold with the US U18 team. So Emma Gentry, it is a player that we expect to be able to contribute offensively right away. She's a big body. She's a power forward with extremely quick hands, extremely quick shot, really heavy wrist shot, as well. And so, and she's plays very aggressive, carries, very high level in terms of physicality in the offensive zone as well, right? So we're excited to see her in a game. Mackenzie Bourgerie, our local, if you will, North Wright County, she's consistently put up points in the Minnesota High School League. She shows a really a knack for the net down low, got really quick hands, good eye for the net in those low offensive situations. So those are a couple that, we expect to be able to contribute offensively as well. And, and some of the other ones, Allison Green and, Linnea Melatinos, they play such a well-rounded game. We think they're going to be able to step into some key roles right away. And so offensively, those are a few that definitely jump out.
All right, next up, we'll have Zach Dwyer again of the Times.
Yeah, Coach. I guess also just entering year 2 now. What were some of the biggest takeaways from that first season after being the assistant for a couple seasons, and just what were some of the big things you learned along the way?
A lot. I don't even know where to start with that. Obviously, when you move to an assistant, from assistant to head coach role within the same program, there's certain challenges that you're just innately going to have, and that's just the relationship that you have with the players, the relationship you have with other staff members in the building, and just redefining what that looks like, and just learning how to interact with that. And for me as a head coach, just learning what it's like to be the boss, right, if you will, and be able to step away from certain things that I grew accustomed doing for quite a few years, as my time as assistant coach, and then just making sure and just learning and reacquainting myself with what it means to be a head coach. I've been a head coach in the past and in different teams in different situations, and learning what that looks like here at the D1 level. And so it was a big learning year for me. There's a lot that I learned with that in terms of, especially with how I communicate with players. And those relationships and what those relationships have to be and how they need to change, for being a head coach. And then also what that looks like in terms of, defining what our style of play is, and things that, speaking personally, what are pieces that, that I want to see in our game, whether it be special teams or whether it's 5-on-5 play, or even it's just talking about our team culture, but then also how to engage the staff, and then as well as the players in that process as well. So it was a big learning curve for me, and COVID now has thrown another big learning curve at me as well with year 2. So I'll take it. I'll take those 2 learning curves any day. Don't want the easy path. So it's been really good for me. And I think it's really, really helped us as a staff as well, in terms of asking some tough questions, what we want this program to look like. So I'm more confident now, even with COVID, about where this program is going and what we want to see out of it. So yeah, I don't even know where to start sometimes with the lessons, but the communication piece and the relationship piece were the biggest ones.
We'll send things back over to Bill with Center Ice View.
Steve, there was quite a span between goals for and goals against last year. However, your goaltending was pretty good, over 91%. You brought in 5 forwards and 1 defenseman and a goalie. You talked about the offense. What are you doing on defense this year to, battle against shots against and that type of thing?
Yeah, that goes to tweaking a little bit to do with our D zone structure, and just looking how we can identify different roles, responsibilities on the ice, and have different conversations with our players. So we've started there, and last year, Emma Paluzny, after Janine got hurt early in the year, actually the weekend before Mankato, Poe, she stepped up and she answered the bell, and she played every minute after that, basically every game from then on, and really shouldered a huge load in terms of what she was able to do for us back there. So sometimes, like you said, it shows up a little bit in the shots there, but also the save percentage in terms of how she was able to hold us in some games, but obviously for us, we need to be limiting shots against. And that's where, like I said, that goes to a few of our tweaks with our D zone, as well as just in terms of what we work on in practice, in terms of how we're defending against a rush and some of the details for our defensemen from there. And the more we can limit, obviously, zone time for the opposing team, the more we believe we can, you might imagine, reduce shots against. So Asani Ahola is our freshman goalie coming in. She was a starter in the Finnish U18 team. We believe that she's going to be able to help shoulder some of that load with Emma, and the D, we have Adela Skidlova. She's played on the senior national team, senior U18 team. So she has a significant amount of experience and she's showing well right now. So we believe that she plays a very physical game as well. And so we believe that's going to help. We also believe that Addie Scribner, with that transfer, she's going to be, like I said, she's going to be playing D for us this year. We believe that those two pieces are going to help us as well on the back end in terms of limiting D zone time, but then also breaking the puck out more efficiently. So with those pieces, added together, obviously, hopefully that results in reducing shots against, and that's the ultimate goal. And we get more at the other end. So yeah, obviously that was a piece of our discussion over the off season as well.
One other thing I wanted to ask is, you've been practicing for several months. Are you still navigating your lineup, or do you have some set lines in mind right now? Or is that something where you're going to retool that as you move along?
We had a good idea until COVID hit us a week and a week ago. So we had a pretty good idea of who some of those people are that read each other well, that have some chemistry forward line wise. And then COVID hit. So right now it's going to be, okay, who do we have available and who's had chemistry in the past, and so we were doing a little bit of juggling early in the season because we, with COVID, you expect this to happen at some point. We were hoping it didn't happen so early, but at some point, you're going to have players in and out of the lineup just due to, and then just all the wear and tears of the season. So as well. So we have some, usually with building lines, you look for pairs. That's how we tend to do it. Okay, who are some pairs that have some chemistry, and then who fits those that pairing as well, right? So we have some in mind, and some of them will be able to stay together. But this year it's going to be, who do we have in the lineup and who has chemistry from there. So yes, we had a pretty good idea beforehand, even without playing games. We had a pretty good idea, and then COVID hit. So we'll have a little bit of that leading into this weekend. But obviously not a full lineup leading into Friday.
Another question from Sam Getzinger of KVSC.
Yeah, I want to circle back into this series coming up this weekend against Mankato. Is there anything you're specifically prepping for or have been this week in advance to this series against the Mavericks?
Everything, leading into the first game of the season for us, but no, I guess special teams is one, that we're going to be eyeing on this week, making sure our special teams are in order. And then D zone, we're spending time on D zone, breakout, and special teams the last little while. So those are the three keys for us. And so making sure that those pieces, and again, you try and replicate game situations as much as possible. And this past week with 7 skaters, that's hard sometimes to play 5-on-5. You can't do that. So you get creative in other areas, but those would be the three things that we're really, trying to key on as we go into Friday.
We go now to Blake Tyson in the University Chronicle.
You kind of expected COVID to be a thing at some point this season, and obviously didn't want it to happen so quickly, but barring obviously everybody coming away healthy and safe, can you kind of take away some positives that maybe getting to look at some of the younger players in your lineup early on this season?
Yeah, it gives you a little prolonged time to look at them during practice situations, put in some different situations that maybe they may not be in right away in the start of the season. And like I said before, COVID allowed us to push our fitness ceiling higher than we usually do during September and October. Usually you're already starting your in-season phase in strength training off ice. So for us, it allowed us to do that, because that was another piece that we identified over last season, that we wanted to become a fitter team, and being able to be a little more relentless on the ice and have a higher fitness level. So that's one thing we've addressed and very happy with for our players that they've been able to do that. So there's that piece, but then on the ice, there's, that you try freshmen in certain areas and allow them to have some experiences as much as you can. And COVID allowed us to do that and give us that opportunity, and just have different conversations with them and work on things for a little bit longer than you usually would. Sometimes you just talk about D-zone, working on it for one day, and then all of a sudden you're playing on Friday. Now you've been able to talk about it for a week, at a time. So it's helped us in some ways. Obviously, you would have liked to have been playing games this whole time, but nothing we can do about that. That's out of our control. But that's how some things that we addressed during the COVID time, if you will.
Steve, we did get a couple of questions as well from Noah Grant of the Huskies Warming House. I'll read off one of those from him. Leadership will be extra pivotal this weekend thanks to an unorthodox season. Even though she was a captain last year, what qualities does Kenzie Wiley bring to the team that makes her deserving of the C?
I always expect a few questions coming from Noah, so I'm not surprised he snuck a few in there. This is great, but really our leadership group has been fantastic. For a leadership group that obviously we just named our season A's, but they've been leaders since the spring, and even the last season, right? And Kenzie, being the one that wore a letter last year and leading through this year, some qualities that she brings is that she's hard to describe in just one word, because she's that player that anybody can go to. She's one of the most supportive and most caring teammates that you'll ever be around, and she knows exactly when a player needs a hug or a push. She knows exactly what players need that and when they need it. And she's just very in tune with what her teammates need, and when we asked the players to vote on captains and then describe why each individual deserves a letter and is deserving of being named a captain of this team. And Kenzie consistently came back is that, her commitment to this team, her passion for her teammates, and how much she cares about them as individuals, not just hockey players, but individuals, who was clearly, shine through in those remarks. So she's a highly committed individual that we can be prouder of to have the C.
What are you expecting out of this series from Minnesota State after watching them against Minnesota Duluth this past weekend? And what are some keys for the Husky success?
Well, Mankato always plays just a high tempo, very aggressive style of game, right? So we're going to expect a high tempo, physical style of game from Mankato, right? And so it's no secret. It's going to be, both teams. I think we might even have similar numbers in terms of roster size. So it's going to be fast paced, and in that regard, it's going to be a physical game. There'll be some special teams as well, and so we're expecting that. We're expecting it to be a high pressure game, and they like a high volume of shots. They like to try and maximize on the volume of shots as well. So we'll have to be ready defensively for those situations. But there's one thing you can always expect from Mankato is they're going to be a hardworking, very physical and team, and apply a lot of pressure. So we're preparing for that, and we expect nothing less from Mankato.
Back to Bill Proud of Center Ice View.
Yeah, just one last thing that I had, Steve. It looks like you did bring some size in it forward this year, the recruits. Question on what's the team speed like this year?
Just as good. We have size, but we're also impressed with the speed, and that's one thing in the recruiting process that we added. It's like, you want size, but they have to be able to keep up. They have to be able to play with pace. And we believe we've been able to, in some of our individuals that we have that do have that size, they're still able to play with pace, and using Emma Gentry as an example, she played on the USU 18 team, so she comes in with some experience on that side of things. And Linnea Melatindos, she may not be as quite as tall as Emma, but she carries some speed. So we've added some size, added some physicality up front with that as well, which will definitely help. But with team speed, we believe that we've elevated our team speed as well, and overall from last year. So just in terms of what we've been able to add, but then also what our returning veterans have been able to do with their game and how they've been able to improve and increase their explosiveness and their overall speed. So that's a big thing we addressed in the off season last year, when we got creative with the COVID training at home. That's one thing we addressed is just overall team speed, and our veterans came back stronger and faster. And then our freshmen add some of that as well. So overall, we're really happy with that.